Okay, you guys, today we're going to be making these Jen Arani landscapes. Jen Arani is a graphic designer who's become famous for her simple but lovely little landscapes, okay? And they're going to look something like these when they're done, where the sky is just painted and everything else is black and white. And you've got things that are far away, things that are in the middle, and things that are up close, okay? Our mountains are gonna look 3D. I'm gonna show you how to do all of that. Okay, so you've already got your circle drawn, and I kind of went ahead and drew a little bit of a mountain range for you just to get you started, okay? The first thing that we're gonna do is we are going to take these mountains and we're gonna draw these little curves on the side of them with our pencil, okay, to get them in there, okay? So what you do is you just kind of, I'm gonna make my mountains a little darker so you guys can see. Okay, and everybody's will look a little different. But you kind of start in the middle of each mountain and you kind of curve it back. So in the middle and curve it back. If you need to, you can bring it back up. So it goes from the low point here, from the high point of this mountain to the low point of the mountain. Just like this. And they're all going to look a little different, and some of them might come down lower, and that's okay. This one we can't really see the high point, so I'm going to bring it just kind of out of the picture like that. Okay. The other thing that we're going to do with our pencil, I'm just making my horizon line darker so you can see it. This is the horizon line, okay, is we're going to put some lines here for background, middle ground, and foreground, okay? So I'm going to do kind of like a line that comes across here, and that's going to be stuff that's far away. And I'm going to curve it, and it gets kind of shorter as it comes up. If that's hard for you, or if you try it and you're like, that's just not working for me, that's okay, okay? Just whatever you end up with, we'll just roll with it, okay? Because it's really not super important. If you end up with a couple extra lines here or there, that's going to be fine, okay? All right. So that's all we're doing with our pencil. The rest of it we will do in Sharpie. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to trace everything that you have right now in Sharpie, just regular Sharpie, okay? And then we'll come back and I'll show you how to add some texture to these parts, and we'll add our trees, okay, using texture too. So all you're going to do is whatever you have, you're going to use your regular Sharpie. You could use your skinny Sharpie if you really, really wanted to, but I really like how bold this is with my regular, okay? So you're just going to take your regular Sharpie and you're going to outline all of the stuff, and we're not adding extra details yet, okay? We're just tracing what we've got. All right, you guys do yours while I do mine. Okay, now that it's outlined with Sharpie, let's start with the texture in here, in these little areas, and then we'll move on, okay? First thing you need to do is pick a direction for these lines. They could go straight up and down like this. They can go sideways. If you want them to go sideways, I like to turn my paper sideways like this, or they could go diagonal, okay? You don't want them to go different directions, but you can see I've got these lines in here, and I was trying them different ways. Here's what it looks like when it goes diagonal, and here's what it looks like when it goes sideways, okay? So it's up to you. I'm gonna do it sideways because that's an easy one for me to just turn my paper sideways, and you just come through here and you take your skinny Sharpie and you very carefully, and that's another reason I wanted you guys to use a regular Sharpie. It gives you a thicker line. I did kind of get out of the line a little bit right there, but because it's such a thick line, you can't really tell. Okay, so now on this one, I'm gonna do the same thing. And then on this one, just go slow, don't rush it, and we're just doing slow but well-drawn lines. And then when you turn it, look, you see how everything looks like it's 3D now? Now I used my regular Sharpie for these details right here, for the texture and the mountains, okay? And those are just little dashes, but you don't have to use your regular Sharpie. All right, now you're gonna have a little piece of paper to practice on. I happen to have a little mess up paper here, okay? But we're gonna give you a little piece of paper to try out on, okay? So what I'm gonna have you guys do next is we're gonna practice drawing an evergreen tree. We're gonna make kind of just like a medium to small one. You draw a line like this, and I like to use my regular Sharpie because if you use a skinny Sharpie, it doesn't fill in as quickly, okay? And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna do some little short, teeny tiny lines at the top. And then you do some little short lines again. And then they just get longer as you go down, and you've got a little evergreen tree. So if you want to practice that a few times, you can, okay? They just get longer and shorter. Longer at the bottom, shorter at the top. You want to make them small because if you're trying to do a big tree like this, first of all, that's too big for our picture. And second of all, it's going to take forever. So we're just practicing little trees. Okay, if you get kind of a goofy one that looks like that, just come back in and fill it in. Or you can make it taller. All right, once you get it to where you want it, okay, let's do a few practice trees. Okay, now that you've got it where you want it, what I want you to do is think about small trees are going to be back here, right? So teeny tiny trees are back here, medium trees, and then bigger trees are up front, okay? So if I want a tree back here right on the horizon line, it's going to be tiny. Those are kind of easy to start with anyway, because they're so far away, you can't really mess them up. All right, so then if I do some trees here, they're gonna be just a little bit bigger, not a lot bigger, just a little bit. So I might do 2 here and 1 here. And we're just doing them along the line. You see how I'm stopping when it hits the line? Okay. And then when you get to this section, they're going to be a little bit bigger than that, right? So this one is going to go to here. And then I think I may not do a really big one right up here. I might just do a couple right along here. And then I might just leave this. If you wanted to do one right here, you would want to do it first. And then maybe just a medium one right here. If you're not sure where to put your trees, you can always, after doing a few in the background, ask me or Miss Caitlin, and we can help you figure that out. Okay, so I think that's the biggest tree that I'm gonna do for mine. All right, now in this picture, I had one right up front in the middle. So if you have space for that, but you see how if I do one here, it's gonna run into this one, and I don't think I'll like how that looks, okay? If you wanted to draw some little snowflakes in the sky, you can, but they're gonna be black, so that's up to you. You could also put some out here. Those are just a little like X with a couple little lines in them. You certainly do not have to do that. And they're going to be black because it's a black and white drawing. So if you don't want your snowflakes to be black, then maybe just don't add them. Okay. All right, so now we're going to paint our background, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. Okay, so when you paint your backgrounds, you're going to have a water cup and watercolors. Again, I always use just what's handy when I'm making these videos. And I happen to have these big watercolors that I have at school, but you guys will have better ones, okay? So you want to think about what colors usually go in a sky. Brown doesn't usually go. We're not doing black, no black today, okay? Even though the sky can be black, this will look better because it's so black and white. We want something with some color. So you could make it a sunset, you could make it blues and purples, okay? But what you're gonna do is you're gonna get your paintbrush really wet. And this is actually watercolor paper, okay? We don't usually use that at school because it's so expensive. But let's say I just wanna do blues and purples. All right, we're gonna do a technique called wet into wet. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna very carefully, just like you're painting, with color, you're gonna outline your mountains here, just clear water. And this works really well with actual watercolor paper. If you didn't have actual watercolor paper, it might not work. And then I'm gonna come in between all that, like I've outlined it, and I'm gonna fill it in with water. Wet into wet. So we have to get the paper wet first. To do this. Okay. But you still wanna be careful with it. I'm not going out of the line, so I'm not being crazy. All right, now while it's wet, I'm gonna take some of this blue. I pre-moistened my blue, and I'm gonna kind of dab. And I might even do some little like squigglies up into the sky. And you can see the edges of my color are getting fuzzy, okay? And that is what you want. That is how you want wet into wet to look, okay? That's the point of this, is to make it look like it's one of those really beautiful skies that people paint. So I did 2 areas of blue. And you can also come back in and do some darker areas in there once you get it in. And what's gonna happen is that wet of the watercolor is gonna spread it out. That's called bleeding, okay? Then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna use this purpley color. It's actually kind of like a magenta color. And again, you want it really wet, so I'm spreading it out. I'm dabbing a little bit. And I'm just bringing this color to where it touches the blue, but I'm not going over the blue, just where the edges touch. And you see how pretty that's looking? Because the paper's wet and we're doing this wet into wet technique, your colors are gonna blend really nicely. Ooh, if you get a dark area, that's okay. You can just come back and do some dabbing with some water, and it'll just kind of blend out. And it's okay if you have some dark areas anyway, because sometimes in the sky there are some dark areas. If you get a little bit out of the lines, that's okay, but try not to. Try not to get out of the lines a whole lot. This area has started to dry quite a bit, so I'm gonna have to use a little bit more water. Okay, and there you go. That is how you do a wet into wet watercolor sky. There's my heat. That looks realistic and also kind of bleeds into each other and looks like a beautiful sky. All right, when you're done with this, you're gonna write your name with your Sharpie right down here in the corner. You can sign it like an artist if you want to, or you can just write your name, or you can write your name on the back. And we're gonna put them in the drying rack and let them dry. I can't wait to see these. They're gonna look so beautiful.